everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is my colleague, Ohnsman, Forbes senior editor and author of the Current Climate newsletter. Alan, thanks so much for joining me.
Hi, Brittany. Great to be with you again.
It is great to be speaking with you because we talked about this last week, but Elon Musk, he had his trillion-dollar pay package approved by Tesla shareholders, but you're reporting just days later, two engineers who have both been with the company for 8 years and worked on the EV side of the company, they both quit just a few days later, and this comes after a string of other high-profile employees were either fired or left Tesla as well. You're describing this as an engineering exodus. Why are we seeing this?
That's a great question. As you mentioned, on Sunday, two high-level engineers at Tesla, Emmanuel Lamacchia and Siddhant Awasthi, both announced on LinkedIn that they were leaving the company. They said, it's been a great experience. They thanked management and said, we'll keep you posted on what comes next. But in each case, Emmanuel Lamacchia ran the Model Y program globally, and that is Tesla's single biggest moneymaker. That vehicle is, one of the best-selling, if not the best-selling cars in the world. And is the cornerstone of Tesla's revenue. And Siddhant Awasthi was in charge of the Model 3 and the Cybertruck program. So, between those three products, it's about 90+% of Tesla's sales volume. So that's not inconsequential. And as you mentioned, their departures, the timing was fascinating because, of course, we had the Tesla shareholder meeting on November 6th, and then just within 3 days of that, two high-placed engineers announced they were departing, and there has been just a string of folks who have left the company this year. The former head of the Optimus robot program, the former head of battery tech, a very high-placed. Some called him quietly sort of Tesla's number two early this year, who was in charge of sales and manufacturing for Europe and North America, departed. The U.S. Vice President of Sales and Service left, and all of those are within the last 5 to 6 months. And while Tesla employs a lot of people, Tesla has a very light C-suite and not a lot of known high-level executives aside from Elon and the CFO. So when you get departures like this, it's pretty meaningful because these are big programs. So if you've got somebody who was running the Model Y program, the Model 3 program, the Cybertruck program, the Optimus program, and the battery tech, those are all pretty core to Tesla's business. So it's certainly notable.
And I know that you said the two engineers who left over the weekend, together they ran 90% of the sales volume at Tesla. I'm curious because you and I have had a lot of conversations of Tesla not really doing well this year. Q1 and Q2 weren't great for Tesla. Q3 was what you described as a sugar high. Cybertrucks flopped. How much of that do you think is that the fault of these engineers or the other high-level engineers and not just Elon Musk?
Well, undoubtedly, perhaps they were getting some grief internally from Elon Musk because he's not a patient person, and if things aren't going well, he will make life pretty difficult for people. So I have no doubt that both of those engineers who left were probably dealing with a lot of tough feedback from Elon. But if we look at the products themselves, Cybertruck. The only person responsible for Cybertruck at the end of the day is Elon Musk. It's his design. He wanted it. It's exactly what he wanted. And so, one of the engineers is tasked with having to make the most of a product that Elon really prioritized, and that has turned out to be one of the single biggest failures in the modern era in the auto industry. He predicted hundreds of thousands of sales. It did about 50,000 in its first year, and it's tracking to do about half that this year. So it's not a success. Multiple recalls. It's the butt of jokes by late night talk show hosts and comedians. So it's not been a great outing. In the case of the Model 3 and the Model Y, the volume there is still high, although declining. And one of the reasons it's declining is Tesla hasn't done what normal auto companies do. Take Toyota or Honda. Every 4 to 5 years, they'll do a full model refresh of the product and add lots of new features and tweak the design, and it may end up looking a lot more compelling. Tesla is really not interested in doing that. It essentially has established these products and then it just lets them run with not a lot of major changes over the course of their life. Just this year, both Model Y and Model 3 have been lightly refreshed. They have a new looking front end and a slightly different front headline design, but that's about it. It's not a major like, they didn't redo it from scratch. And the reason for that is it's really profitable not to change your product. If you've done the CapEx and the investment to do a new model, and then you just let it run, that's great. Because you've amortized your investment in it and you're making back your investment, so the margins get more attractive the longer you let it go. The problem is consumers get bored. Model 3 came out in 2017. Model Y came out at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020. The 3 is long in the tooth. We're 8 years into it, and it hasn't dramatically changed. Model Y is 5 years old, and again, it's just received its first kind of major refresh, which was the front grille, but it's pretty superficial. So the engineers who left, they would oversee production of these modified vehicles. And Elon's goal is to maximize the profit margin for the existing product. So what we're seeing is, in each case, the company did not invest substantial amounts to redo these products. They did sort of light, superficial things on the surface, and this is where Tesla's getting hit because there's just a lack of fresh product at the company, and that's separate from anything else with the reputation and how people view Elon. The auto business at the end of the day, it's all about new product, and car companies for a century have focused on that. Elon doesn't come from that background, and his view seems to be, I've designed it, it's fine as is. We'll do some light refreshes, but no major redos. And in fact, the newest iterations of the Model 3 and Model Y are simply cheaper versions. So they've downgraded some of the materials and other things to sell them for a little bit less, to try to help the appeal. Not a lot of industry analysts think that's a winning strategy, that an existing model that you just make a little less attractive by taking things away doesn't necessarily excite people to buy it. Probably if someone wants a cheaper Tesla rather than getting the lower grade version or the discounted version of a Model Y, you would get a lightly used version that would probably be about the same price. So in terms of strategy, it's objectively, there may have been some frustration with the engineers with this approach, because auto engineers want to do new stuff. They always want to do new stuff. That's exciting. Overseeing something that's not changing is not that interesting.